My name is Otis Moats. My age is 90, and I'm from West Virginia. Then it was Moyers, West Virginia. But now I think they listed as Sugar Grove.
And where were you born?
Right here, right here in Moyers, about a mile and a half from here, on the other side of that ridge. My dad's name was Cameron Gilbert Moats. My mom's name was Gladys Gertrude Stroyer. My dad was from here. My mom was from uh, Mount Solon, Virginia. That's where she was from.
What did they do for a living?
My mom didn't do anything. She just raised us children. My dad, he worked for farmers. He made baskets when he could. It wasn't no jobs. He would have to walk. We had no transportation. We had no lights. We had no telephone. We didn't have anything. But he raised what we ate. And some of the farmers would give him some jobs doing different things.
So when you say your dad made things,
He made baskets. He made baskets, and he sold them at a store in Franklin. I think he made $2 or $3 a basket. And then one place he might have sold some. He traded for some different things with some grocery or something like that. Uh, and that's all we had no money to buy shoes for the rest of it. We we walked in the wintertime. We had to put rags around our legs to keep the snow out of our shoes. There wasn't no such thing as a snow day here. The teacher lived right up here, relatives, and we had to walk about a mile and a half to school. And I had no lunch. See, they had no food at the school, and I would bring maybe a pancake that put apple butter or something on it, or buckwheat cake. We had anything we could get, put in a bag to bring it to school. We had to have something to eat. School had no water either, so they had the teacher would have to send us down over the hill to a spring each day, different kids, and bring them some water to the school, and had something like a cooler, put it there in the school, in the parts of the school, and everybody drank. I think everybody drank out of the same cups, as far as I know, and that's what we had. We had one room, one uh, heating stove, big stove in the middle of the room, and that's why we heated the one room. She had 8 grades in there, and when she had a long bench at the front of the school and a blackboard, and whatever grade she wanted to teach in that moment, she'd take them up to the front and teach them that way. And of course, the other kids sit back and hear what she's saying because we're all in that one room. But we we got we of all the hardship we had in the school, only one ever went to jail. And one of them, which is kid you don't know about, is William Lindsay. He was the first black auditor the IRS ever hired. He came out of that school. Uh, I was in the Army, and I went to Fort Myers, Virginia. That's the Honor Guard outfit down at Arlington National Cemetery. And I came out of West Virginia. The only education I had was 8th grade, and I had no lights. All I had was a kerosene lamp from my 8 years. And they picked me. I went to your IQ had to be so high, your weight and height, and everything, to get to go to Fort Myers, Virginia, an Honor Guard outfit. And I came out of the little schoolhouse and had nothing. But I did, and of course I got my GED later in life after I moved to Virginia. I got my GED, but the kids we had nothing. I think that, as far as I know, the books we had, the white people give them to us. I think it's what they didn't. They were done with them. They gave us those books what we studied out of. That's all we had. Had no lights in the school. Had no lights in the school. We had one big old wooden stove right in the center of the schoolhouse, and 2 rows of benches on this side and 2 rows on that side. And they had a little vestibule built out in front where it's probably 4 or 5 feet long. That's where we had our water cooler sitting. And so, but I think everybody did pretty good for what we had. We had nothing, but we survived. We didn't have nothing. We had no athletics, nothing like that. We just played between ourselves and ate what we could, what we had to eat. My dad raised everything we had. He had a little garden. He plowed. We raised a garden, killed a hog in the fall. But between in the fall, there's certain you can't kill a hog unless it's cold in like November or December. But before that, they killed groundhogs. We ate a lot of groundhogs. A lot of people probably wouldn't eat them, but they're good. They're a clean animal, eating up the grass. And that's all they ever eat. So they would go groundhog hunting, and some of them. My dad never shot them. He had a dog, and a dog would find them in the hole, and he would dig them out. He took a mattock and a groundhog hook with a rod with a hook on it. And when he dug back in, before he get to them, sometimes they'd go a long ways. He would catch a hook them, bring them out, and could kill them. And we ate a lot of that time of fall before you could kill his hog. He raised a hog about every fall, and we eat the groundhogs. And of course, a lot of people still do it, but I haven't eaten them for years. But they're not bad. They don't eat nothing. They're a lot cleaner than a hog and a chicken. Hog and a chicken, they eat anything. And but a groundhog doesn't just eat grass all he ever eats. And like I say, but we used to eat most time in the fall. They get sort of put on fat for the winter. They hibernate through the winter time, and they put on fat, and they're pretty good. So we used to live off that a little bit in the fall. Ate what we could. My dad, he worked for one man. He lived about 5 miles from here. So he would get up about 3 o'clock in the morning and he had to walk probably 4 or 5 miles to get there. He'd get there and he'd work all day. But the man would let him stay of nights for 3 or 4 nights, then he could come back home. There was a store out there that burnt down, and he would go by there when he come home. And I know of time when he would carry, that's about 3 miles from here. I know about 2.5 miles, he would carry 40 or 50 pound bag of flour home because we had to have some flour or something. We didn't have nothing. Like he raised like beans and stuff like that. But he has a nice peach tree. He grew some beautiful peaches and apples. And the kind you buy at the store, the big Alberta peaches, he raised some of those. And he raised honeybees and took the honey. He would take the honey and he would trade the honey for a piece of meat at a place in Sugar Grove. He'd take a horse and sled and take it. It's 6 miles, I think, to Sugar Grove. He'd take a horse and sled, take what he had to sell, or buckwheat. He took his buckwheat out there to grind it where they ground his buckwheat, because he raised some buckwheat. He'd have to get up in the morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, when the moon was shining, a little dew on it, because if you cut it when it's dry, all the kernels would fall off. He had to cut it when it was damp, and then we would shock it, so he would keep it in. Later on, he would haul it to a little barn and lay him on the ground. They call it a flail. It was a piece of wood with a hole through it, and maybe a piece of rawhide tied to another rod, and he pounded it, flail it out, and all the kernels go out on the floor.
Wow.
And then he had an old windmill you turn by hand. He poured the kernels in that, and as you turn it, it would blow the chaff away, and the kernel would fall on down. He would take them out there to Sugar Grove about 6 miles and grind it for it and make flour out of it. And then you can buy buckwheat now at the stores. It's pretty expensive, and that's why we lived off of those a lot.
Who were your grandparents?
On my dad's side, I didn't know them. They died before I was old. They were Peter and Polly Moats. They were. I think that one of them, the Moats migrated in from Germany. I think they were German, but they were when they got together. Their brothers and sisters. When they didn't speak English. They spoke Dutch to each other, and of course wasn't interested in no Dutch. Us kids and everything, we just knew English. My one brother could learn it a little bit. But I wasn't interested in no Dutch, and that's why they spoke to each other. They didn't speak. They could speak English, but they spoke Dutch. Cause they were. I think they supposed to be German Dutch. They migrated down from Pennsylvania back up here in the mountains. There used to be an old cabin set back in there where they had lived in, I think, at one time. Then, of course, they migrated out and this. And my mom was on a different. She's from Virginia. I think I don't know much about my grandparents on on mom's side. I know when my grandmother died, and I know her husband. Well, he got killed by somebody hit him with a car. So I knew him, but I didn't know much about them because they were over there. We didn't have no transportation. My mom only got to go to see her parents, so maybe once every year or two, and she might could find somebody to take her, or they might come get her. So we didn't know much about my grandparents in them years until I got a car rather, back in 1952. I got my operator in 52, and my dad bought an old 1934 Ford. It was a coupe, but somebody took the trunk off and put a bed in it. But the bad part was it ran pretty good, but it would use a quart of oil from here to Franklin. But all the smoke would just come up inside of that thing. It come from the car. And when I took my operator, used that to take my driving test. And the state police got in and went up. He said, "Why is this thing smoking?" I said, "It's using oil." He said, "Why don't you fix it?" I said, "I can't. I don't have no money to fix that thing." So he went on back street down Franklin. He said, "Pull over." So I pulled over. He said, "Slide over. I want me driving." So he got in it and turned around. But he didn't know that it didn't have hydraulic brakes. Those old cars had mechanical brakes, like their brakes were just like your your emergency brake. Had them type brake. He cut around there real quick, run up in behind the state police car, and run almost right into the car. But he just laughed and said, "You got it." But he could have tore that car up, but he didn't know that it didn't have hydraulic that year. Back in 1952, we got our first. Like I said, we didn't have lights till 1949. And my mom had to wash all those clothes through a year on a washboard, a tub. She had a washboard. She washed her clothes like in one tub of water, and then she would put them in another tub and rinse them, and then carry them out and put them on a line. Because in the wintertime, though, a lot of times it was cold, they would freeze, and then you had to take them in and hang them up in the house and dry them up a little bit. But my dad built that old house way up there. He had 2 rooms when he first got married, because he built another one after. And it was no water, nothing. We had no lights. So he went to the woods and cut down red oak trees. Red oak, you can split shingles out of them. You can't do it on the rock oak. You can't. Now the white oak is what he made his baskets out of. The red oak was split. You could split shingles and that's what he put on the roof. But me and my brother slept up like a little old attic, and in them days, in big storms, and if a wind blowing that snow would blow in under those shingles. In the morning, it'd blow in your face, and on your bed, you have to brush the snow off in the morning. But that's all we had. The white oak, you use white oak to build your baskets out of. I saw he got about $3 for one. He had to cut it down, shave them down, make ribs and splits and everything. And I saw one in the yards at a flea market. It was over $100 for that little basket. He got about 3. So
wow.
we lived the best we could. And most of the people, we weren't any better off than the rest of them. Now, the people lived in your village, well, whoever village you are, they had a little bit better. For Miss Clary, she was school teacher. She got a little money, school teacher. And my dad just had working for people and trying to raise 8 or 9 kids.
Is that how many brothers and sisters you had?
It was 9 of us, but we didn't have. But when I went in the army, they asked me, "Do you want to make a little allotment back to your mom or your parent?" I said, "Yeah, I want." I only made $72 a month. Private E1 was only $72 a month, and when I got to be a PFC, I made $78 a month, and then I was Spec 4, I made $122. But I made $40 back to them, and I kept the rest. I did that all. They had to have a little help, so I did the best I could. I don't think the rest of my brothers made anything back to them. I don't know that. I don't think they did. But I did the Bible says, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gave you. And I tried to do the best I could then.
So let's talk about that. So did you grow up going to church?
Yeah, most of my life. I remember going to church when I was back in 1938 and 39, when I was just a little kid. My dad would go to this church, we'd go clear down, clear back up on top of that mountain on the other side with an old lantern. They had church twice a day, in the morning and at night.
What was the name of the church?
It's Moats Chapel right up here, Moats Chapel. And we would go to church in the morning, and then at night he'd come over here and go to church. Had to walk all the way back at night. But all you had was a lantern. They had no flashlights them days. But I've been going all these years. That don't mean you ain't better than anybody. You just go because you feel you need to go.
Can you tell us a story maybe about being a kid and going to church, or?
Well, going to church was just routine for most of us. We just went. Them old people, when they went to church, they went in. They were shouting when they went in those doors. They go in there, be stomping their feet, clapping their hands, praising God when they went to the door. That's the way they were them days. But now it's complete difference to what was them days.
Where did y'all get baptized at?
I got baptized. Well, in them days they would just sprinkle you, but I got baptized in Stanton in the Baptist church, in at the pool of the church. That's what I did. But you don't have to. It's up to you. I did, and of course I know a lot of them did. A lot of them, what they sprinkle, what the Methodists sprinkled all the time. And the Baptists believe in immersion, I think, in the pool and stuff. And of course, some of them went down here to Franklin, where the river is, and they got baptized in the river.
What's the name of that river?
South branch of the Potomac, right there in Franklin. I was down there with them, and the preacher baptized some. Probably around the spring, starting in the spring, not in the winter time. I've known of cases where they baptized and it was ice in the water, and not when I saw them do it. Of course, they joined the church first. They accepted God first, and then the preacher sets up a date when he would take them down to the river. And sometimes he had to have 2 people, because a grown person, it's kind of heavy for the preacher to let them down in the water and get them back up out. And that happened. Now, our preacher didn't do that. A couple of our preachers did that, but most of them just went by the sprinkling. You were sprinkling, that's all they went by.
Did you ever have any favorite songs, or did your mom or dad ever have any favorite songs y'all sang at church? Or?
No, well, I played guitar. We had a choir. I played guitar at church for years, because I can't do it now because of arthritis. We had a choir up out of church. We sang everywhere. All across West Virginia, everywhere. I remember when I sat in that counting, I remember 73 churches we sang at. And that's, we sang more than one time. And it's more than that. I can't do it now. I love to do it, but I can't make the chords of the guitar.
When you say 70, why?
There are 73 different churches.
Were those predominantly black churches?
No, majority of them weren't.
Okay.
90-some% were white churches.
How'd you learn how to play guitar?
I don't know, 1950 or something. I think somebody gave me a guitar, and acoustic guitar, and then I used to play in it and uh, before I was in church too much, you know, there's periods when you don't go to church that much. I playing in the beer joints, playing with bluegrass and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't drinking; I was just playing.
Who were some of your musical influences?
Oh, and on it's a lot of them. Yeah, I mean, as far as on TV, I like say Merle Hanger, any of those people, Chuck Berry, all those people that were great guitar players and sang Elvis Presley. Elvis and I were in the army at the same time. He was on one base, I was on another. Uh, of course, I got out before he did because I was in before he did, but we was in there at the same time. And one of the women I worked with, and Stanton, I went to J.C. Penney and worked there 45 years. But her husband, Elvis, in the same barracks together. I worked shipping and receiving. You were shipping and receiving and all stuff. I was supervisor for a while, but I worked there from 9/11 to 9/11/67 till 2012. I was there 45 years at J.C. Penney.
And what branch of the military were you in?
Infantry, Army. I was in the infantry. I don't know. I guess young people want to do something. I joined the Army, and so they told me, well, you ain't gonna get in the infantry because your feet's not complete. They don't have the argent. They lied just as soon as they told me that because that's the first thing I got. The infantry. I went down Fort Jackson. They stuck me in the infantry. Infantry, the ground soldiers that's out there with a rifle. We didn't have much of helicopters them days. We walked, and I don't know. I just went in the Army.
Did you serve in any wars or?
No, you can't. You get down Arlington. That is a place. If you don't, I don't know why they even sent me down there because I was when the education. I didn't have the education. I had the height and weight, but I did. If you had even much of a traffic violation against you, any kind, even over parking, anything, if it's on your record, you didn't go. You stayed in the Army, but you didn't go to Fort Myers.
Okay, I got you.
Cause they judge the Army around the world of I was the third infantry, what the third infantry is about. So the Army judged on the third infantry.
How were race relations growing up here?
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that good either, I guess. But like in Franklin, if you went to a movie theater, you couldn't sit down where the white people. You had to sit up in a little balcony where we could sit up there. If, like I was telling her, baby, there was a beer joint right there on Main Street. I don't care if the bar stool or table was empty. He would sell you a beer, but you had to stand right inside the door and drink it. You could not walk with her and sit down. If you wanted to get something in one of those places to eat, if you had money to buy anything to eat, you had to go around the back door and pound on the door, and they bring it to the door for you. Like I say, I went in there one day and put a nickel in the jukebox them days. And just as soon as I put the nickel in and started playing, that woman went over and looked at me and said, "You ain't playing that in here." So she didn't give she cut it off and didn't give my nickel back either.
Around what year was that?
That was probably 59 maybe. It's after I got out of the Army. I didn't run into a whole lot of presidents in the Army. But I think the president had integrated the Army and military by 56. I think he did that in 48. That he integrated the Army. But by the way, they were treating the Tuskegee Airmen and all that when they come back home. He integrated the military. So at one time that I was down there, I was the only black president in one of the companies. I was the only black one in the company. So I got along pretty good. Some of my best friends are white guys. We got along good, so I didn't really have any problem with. The only thing I saw that it was sort of being prejudiced, but I guess they could do it better. Like Williamsburg, Virginia, where they got all those, people, what, years ago, George Washington time, where they wore the wigs and dressed up like, what, colonial times, I don't know. The army would dress up like that and go down there and do some ceremony and stuff like that. But they never sent a black one down. They all were white to win. I guess they didn't have no black ones in that back there in them days. But I didn't care. I wouldn't want to go anywhere. But that's the only time. Otherwise, we got along pretty good. We were treated pretty good. I was.
We were talking to a woman earlier, and she said she had heard a story about a man being lynched over near Franklin.
Oh, that's up with a lot. I don't know exactly specific cases, but like in Virginia, where close to Stanton, there were a lot of people lynched them those days. They were lynched and murdered. But I don't know specific cases, but I know they did because they got records of where they were. But that wasn't none unusual. That went on a lot. The KKK. I saw them march over Stanton. No, I didn't stand. They were, the Mary Baldwin College had them up there for, I don't know, just a march or something. And I was surprised. It was a black cop leading the KKK down through Stanton. But he had his job. He had to do it. He was escorting the KKK. But there used to be, I didn't see them exactly, but down here in certain parts of West Virginia, there used to be signs of out there like dogs and nigger keep off of grass. That was on the signs. Or like niggers be out of town before dark and things like that. It went on, but like I said, I didn't really. I've been to the water fountains and waiting rooms and all stuff like that, but I didn't really see that. But I've seen a lot of the waiting rooms and water fountain, toilets and all that stuff like that, where I couldn't go to. But if I couldn't go, I just didn't go. So just forget about it. So, but yeah, it was a lot of it. There's still a lot of it.
So in this general area, were there certain places where you would know that you would be safe, or certain places where you knew, hey, you wouldn't be safe?
Yeah, well, a lot of these people here, you couldn't tell if they were black or white. In Moatstown, they were mixed up from the slave time, and you couldn't, like my dad was just white, you couldn't tell he was, because a lot of them were, I guess they were considered white. Because I know one family, Moats is some year Berlin, like I would tell you, Berlin and all of them, and my dad's brothers. And so his wife, my dad Berlin, his wife, came out of a family where they were all one family. And all of them went for black except one named Madison. He went for white. He bought that place over here back over in Madison. He was their brother and sister, but he went for white, and the rest of them went for black. And one of the girls, I think one of the boys didn't like black people very well, and one of the girls, she didn't like white people very well. They all came from the same family. That's the way they were, but but as far as being safe, I didn't see nothing around here, because you couldn't tell who was black and who was white. They were all, and most people got along pretty good. I didn't see much violence, not here, but I've seen in other places.
Did you see any violence around here?
No, you might hear of a little bit of name calling and stuff. I mean, as far as shooting and killing and stuff like that, I didn't see any, because most of them got along fairly good. They might have called you different names and stuff like that, but as far as shooting and killing and stuff like that, I didn't see none. Now I'm not saying it didn't happen, but them they using who was white, who was black. They all same color.
You left to join the military.
Yeah.
But then you came back. Did you see other people leave?
Leave.
Like leave the area and not come back?
Oh yeah.
When did that start?
Because of jobs. Even Lawrence and all of them. He went in '51.
Who was Lawrence?
Lawrence Moats. Stephanie's dad, granddaddy. Cause Stephanie was Sam's brother, but Sam's daddy. He went to Cleveland, got a job in '51, and he retired up there because there was no jobs here. And some of the guys went into the military. My Patty's brothers two of them went in the Navy and retired from the Navy because there's nothing here to do. And that's the reason they left and didn't come back. It wasn't because of the violence or nothing like that. It was because of the jobs. And it was and there just was no jobs. And one time they bought the Navy base over here at Sugar Grove, and that was a little bit of help. Then a shoe factory moved in down here. That gave people some work for a while until they closed. So the reason people left was because of jobs. There just was nothing for people to work and keep a family. Because my dad and we didn't have nothing, period. So he would have been too old to get on a job anyway at that age. So we made it, survive.
Why'd you come back?
Well, I didn't really back. Well, I still live in Stanton. I was born here, but I live in Stanton. I come drive back and forth here all the time because my people were over here. My mom that was over here, and I come over to see them about every other week. And of course, I bought this land right here. This where we're sitting at now. It goes down there for you can see. I paid for, like I said, for $4,500 for that and the trailer and everything. And I just come over to see the people, go to church. Like I say, I go to church after the first and third weekend in Stanton. I go to second and fourth. Of course, it's slacking off a little bit. I can't do it like I used to. Well, Theodore Willis was born in Franklin. Him and his brother was in World War II. When the war ended, they got out. And that was in about 46, I think, they got out. Then in 1950, the North Korea invaded South Korea, and they went and volunteered to go back in the army. See, they didn't have to do any basic training because they had been in the army. So they volunteered to go to Korea. So they volunteered to go over to North Korea. So they left at the end of August, and Theodore was in artillery. I don't know what Arthur was in, but Theodore told me, MacArthur didn't pay no attention to the Chinese getting involved, and there were hundreds of thousands of Chinese waiting on the Americans when they went up over the DMZ, and he said, when you got captured, artillery for the far down range. He said they were overrunning them everywhere, about 100. So they had those big guns laying down point blank into those North Korea, and it still keep coming. And so he started to run, and so he tripped over a guy, I guess was dead when he was running, tripped, and said when he got up, that North Korean got him. Took him prisoner. Said they were locked up. They had him locked up. Florida Lightner said they wait to daylight. They walked from November when he was captured to every day up to February. He said what happened as soon as daylight, they would walk them because then when Americans would come over the planes and see them walk, you can't tell if you're an enemy or who. When you're up in a plane, a jet or something, you see the Americans would come over and strafe them and kill a lot of them. They would do that through the day, then night they would keep them in. So he was missing for maybe 2 years. His parents didn't know where he was. And one day they got a picture from the Department of the Army. The North Koreans sent a picture, a bunch of them, of the POWs, and Theodore was on that picture, and they had their names. And that's the reason they knew where he was. And then, of course, he stayed in a POW until the war ended. And he come back, and when he come back, then he drank a lot. And when he got back, he would just drink. But he was smart. He re-enlisted in the army when he got back from North Korea. and so they paid him a pension. He finally got out of the Army. They paid him a pension right until he got out of the Army. Him and a guy, one of the guys here, they said they gonna go in the wood business. They bought a truck and a chainsaw. Said they go cut wood. I don't think they cut one load of wood. They cut their truck and chainsaw and going to cut wood and shoot. He ain't cutting no wood. And so he finally ended up dying. I don't know what happened to him, But I think they mistreated him pretty good way he talked to North Korea. I think the North Koreans are pretty hard on the Americans. I don't know POWs. He was in there from November of 50 to 50 till 53.
Wow.
As a POW. So he would tell some of the things they did, how they get mistreated. But I don't think they treat anybody that good.
I'm sure you're right.
But he survived it. But that wood cutting business didn't go too good. I don't think they cutting wood. And then, of course, them other two boys that were killed from here, Herbert and Gene. That boy sitting up there with that white cap of it. His brother was missing in action in October of 52. He come missing in action. And of course they finally marked him off dead because they didn't have to find the body. And then Gene, which is from here, he was actually killed on the actual pork chop. You see things on TV, Pork Chop Hill, Clint Eastwood, and all that. He was actually killed on Pork Chop Hill on July the 8th, 1953, his sister's birthday. And he's the one I was telling that I was downtown Franklin, walking down the street, and the state police stopped me. He said, "Do you know Eugene Moats?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know his parents?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, will you tell them that he's missing in action?" Now, they should have told that themselves to the parent, not me. I said, "Yeah, I'll tell them." So they were coming down the street late. I told them. So that was on Saturday. And on the next Saturday, I was up there when I fooled around their house up there all the time with them. She got a letter from the Department of the Army. And I was there when she opened it, and they probably wouldn't do that now. They said, "We found PFC Moats' body along with several other soldiers in a narrow grave." They said his head was missing and several other small parts of his body, but we identified him by his fingerprints and his dog tags that were near his body. Now, I don't think they write that gruesome now, but they did then, because I was there when she opened the letter. They found him, and they told her what they found. Then they brought his body back in April. They had a sergeant come along with him, I guess, to check. He stayed right there with the body. Well, he stayed up here with his parents. Of course, the body was down at the funeral home, and brought him back in April. He was killed in July. Now, I don't know what's in that casket. Maybe they didn't want you to open it or what was in it, but they said parts were missing, but they identified him by his fingerprints and his dog tags that were near him. So, cause he was in a grave with several other soldiers, so I don't know. That's what they wrote. True or not, I don't know.
If you could tell me maybe a story or two about your favorite memories of homecoming. And Stephanie said y'all used to call it camp meeting.
Yeah, at one time, okay. Well, at one time they would sell ice cream. They'd get a couple buckets of ice cream. They'd sell a dipper. They would sell ice cream for a nickel a cone. Or they might butcher a sheep a couple of days before, and they would butcher a sheep and sell mutton. And people bought that. People loved mutton. They would buy that.
Around what year are we talking
When it stopped or when it started?
When
It started before I know.
do you have any idea when it started?
I know. They before my time, they used to do it all the time. I heard they would might kill sheep, and they would butcher that sheep and uh, slice it up and sell sandwiches up. And they didn't have any trouble getting rid of. A lot of people I probably liked it better and do ham stand. I don't care that much for ham stand; it's too salty. But they did pretty good at that, and they've been back through the years. I guess I was born in the 30s, 1935. They used to people would bring their dinners. There used to be some apple trees up through here. People would bring. They couldn't afford to buy stuff from the confectionery. They they had all them kids. They would fix baskets and stuff and spread out here under these trees and eat dinner down here. And of course they sell stuff up there and they have preaching going on. So that's the way. And they did that every year. That sheep, killing that sheep, and
How would they kill it?
how'd they kill it? You got to be careful killing the sheep. They really cut his throat, but you can't let that wool touch the meat. The taste of the wool will go right through that sheep. You got to. They used to cut his throat so it would bleed out. You got to bleed out, and then when they skin it and everything, you had to be careful. Don't let that wool get onto the sheep. I don't know why that taste of that wool got into the sheep, but it did. So that's why they were very careful with that, killing the sheep. Uh, I used to know one guy that used to do it a lot for them because that was in my time. Some white guy was named Roy Moyers. He used to come up here, fool around with everybody. They used to drink cider and all that. They'd carry on. And he was pretty good at that. He used to butcher the sheep for him sometimes. Of course, I knew Roy. He was a good old feller that hung around with everybody.
Did your dad do much hunting or butchering?
He didn't. He butchered a lot, but he didn't hunt much. He wasn't hunting. I told you. It went with his dog. He took a dog, a mattock, and a hook, where he digged in groundhogs. The groundhog hide. They would take it, and my dad would put it in a pan with some ashes. The ashes come out of the stove, and some water, and put it in there for a few days. And the ashes turn into lye, and they would eat the hair off. Of course, you had to scrape the hair off the hide, and then they dry it. And they would use some of it to make shoestrings. It's just leather. Or they would take some of them use it for on the banjo. On the banjo, they use that hide. That's for the a banjo got a covering up there on the head. It's leather, and all that done was out of groundhog hide. Not too many banjo players were around because they do that 3 finger style like Earl Scruggs and all of them, and it's hard to do. But some of them tried to play it, but they knew too good at it. The banjo part. I'll tell a story about a man. One of the guys, he lived back here in where he had a sawmill, and he had camps back there. Where people work on sawmills. They lived back in there, and they used to make home brew. They would take malt and grain, and he had a crock, big old 20-gallon crock, where they put the home brew, made the home. You got to ferment for so many days. It takes malt and grain and everything to put in it, and it makes home brew, and it makes you drunk too. But I think I heard that he put a cloth over top of it, a rag cloth, keep it warm. And I heard, and I think it pretty well so, that a rat got on it and went down into the home brew. And when you went down in there, that eat the hair and everything off the rat down in there. But I think they drank that their home brew down to what that rat. That's what they realized. They drank that home brew. But the rat was on that cloth to keep it warm. But it was too heavy. That rat went down in it, and he couldn't see it. Went to the bottom, and I heard that what alcohol was in that their home brew, eat the hair off that rat, and they drank that home brew. Then another case was the Anderson guy. They drank all of. They drank, but they used to take a raw egg, take eggs, break an egg, and drink it, suck it right out of the shell. They used to do that a lot. They pick a hole in it, and or break it. Just a lot of time you drink, and they would do that too. The raw egg. And I heard I know him. They had some eggs, and they were half drunk, and they cracked. He was just sucking. He just cracked the egg, and took a big swallow. But the problem was the egg was half hatched. It was half a chicken. So he had to have a chicken in his mouth, and I'm sure that didn't taste good. I knew that guy. I knew they both of them. That some of the, as you grow up through the years, you hear all these things. You know some of them for fair fact. One time, was one guy. He said he drank all the time. I used to stop at the house. He said he fixed some meat. He wanted me to see if I take it, eat some. I see how it tasted. I stopped. He had the stuff cooked, fried up there on the kitchen on the table. And after he told me, I said, "What is that?" He said, "Them crows." So we decided to eat some crows. But crows ain't as bad as a buzzard. He'll eat the same thing a buzzard eats. But it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that good either. But I ain't no more from him. It's all these things you run into through life. That's where you run, the people you meet, things you know. And boy, if you could just remember some of the things that you encountered through the years, the people you knew and what they did, you could write a lot of books about it. Because I lived all these years, and I run into all this stuff through the years. Like Lindsay, which we talking about, Bill Lindsay. He applied for that. Maybe I've told you, applied for our IRS job. And so me and another guy was out here along the road. It was late one evening. And this big car pulled up. We were just out there. I think we went out there to buy some cider or something. This big Cadillac, I think a Cadillac or a Lincoln pulled up. These guys got out and dressed like, you see on TV, like the mob people with a hat and a coat. And they got out. They were nice. They said, "Do you know William Lindsay?" We said, "Yeah, we know him. He's kin to us." And they asked us all them questions. And then they said, "Well, thank you, boys," and left. And I heard right after that he got the job for the IRS, being the first black auditor. That I don't know where I think they may have came from Richmond someplace, and they were on the way up here to talk to somebody. They just happened to see us two black guys out there along the road. They stopped. But I didn't know what you dressed like that back in this country with a big Cadillac, and guys dressed like we didn't know what they were dressed like. They just had the long coats and hats and paper and interview, and I didn't know what. But I had no idea what they were for. But I think now they were IRS checking up on him. I didn't know how they do that, but I'm sure they probably checked up on him a long time before they hired him.
What do you think is special about growing up in Moatstown?
I think it was a good place to grow up, but I think the living condition was hard as far as jobs and things like that. We had no educating the way could go to school. That Frankfurt, the high school and elementary school down the road here 12 miles, and the bus went right by, but we couldn't ride it. We weren't allowed to ride it, so we didn't get our education. We had a couple of strikes against them because we had no way to get no other education. A couple of people here did get go to high school, but they went to Stanton and got to live with somebody over there that had a little could go to high school in Stanton. But we didn't have I had no way. Nobody had nobody living in them places for us to go to school or no money. Now, at one time they did have Moorfield is what, 50 something, if you know where Moorfield is, anyway, down the road about 50 some miles. They have a black high school down there. They finally hired a man, I think he was a taxi driver, at the beginning, who owned it. But they drove the kids down there every day, and the man had to sit down and wait for him till the day was over, then he'd come back. Hey, he was from up here, he was the taxi driver owned it, but he had one of the guys up here driving. So the kids would have to get up about 5 o'clock, and so they could get down to Moorfield by 8, and then go to school down there, and then they drive back up. And the driver sat there all day waiting, and that was the only way. And I wasn't able to do that before we lived that way back up across the mountain there. So we didn't have no chance. It was just, I went in the Army, had a little bit, but I should have stayed in the Army. I just didn't. I had a MOS, they call it picket fence MOS. It was my MOS was 111. And that was the infantry MOS. And I don't know, I was starting to stay, go back in, but if I did, I'd have been over Vietnam, because they were sending advisors over there then when I was there, but they hadn't got to me yet, to us yet. I don't know, I guess I should have stayed. I'd say that now, but I just can't go back and change the past. But I'd have been out a long time ago, a couple of times. But I thank God I'm still here. I don't have a lot of money, but you ain't taking none with you anyway. You take Bill Gates, all those guys for them billions of dollars. When they die, they go take to the cemetery, same thing I'm going to take. As far as that wealth is going no further.
That's right.
I don't care what so what you having all that money, you can't spend all that money. You can wear only one suit at a time. You can only live in one house at a time. You can only ride one car at a time. So what's you having billions and billions of dollars? You can't take it with you. So what good is it? You can't. You could just say I've got a lot of money. I'm a billionaire. It means nothing to God. He could carry that. Doesn't mean anything. If you treating your fellow man doing his commandment, what he wants you done is more important than all that money. I think in Revelation it said the only thing you're going to take with you is your works. It's in Revelation, and your works are the good works that you've done for God. I don't think you're going to take with you.